morning, everyone. It's great to see you. I am Joy Henderson, and I am with BPI, I'm a member of the community engagement team, and I'm also a clinical counselor. And I'm joined today by Todd Sivia from Sivia Law Offices in Madison County. So welcome, Todd. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, so I was so thrilled to meet your wonderful marketing associate, Madison from Madison County, hard to forget that, at our opening of our Madison County Clinic in Glen Carbon at our grand opening. And she was so wonderful and just so excited about the work that you're doing at your firm with families who have children with special needs. And as we talked more, she shared that, perhaps we could get together and have this conversation. And we've received so many inquiries and questions from people about this specific area of planning for future. And during this month of autism acceptance and understanding, it's really a big deal for parents as they navigate this road. And the thing I always hear is, what's ahead? I'm always worried about what's ahead. So I guess I want to start by just asking you, what pulled you into this area of law? What motivated you?
Well, it really started, one of the big things is my son has special needs, and learning all the different additional things and additional supports, and that, your expectation of what it was going to be and what it is now is part and parcel of it. And kind of going down the different paths and learning about how to resolve your life with all these different complications.
Okay.
And so I've always had a bent into the estate planning business and real estate world, but adding special needs was a kind of a personal issue that I wanted to make sure that I took care of. So
wow. And then from that, you decided to give back to the community. Yep. And I love how that happens in our lives. That's amazing. Turning something really difficult into something that can be good for others. That's a beautiful thing. So perhaps, you can answer a question that a lot of parents have out there who are just starting this journey. What age should you start planning?
So it doesn't, if you become a parent, you should have a plan. But we go even to the basic. At age 18, you have separated from your parents, and this will be kind of key down the road. At age 18, you are considered to be a legal adult, and no one else can make choices for you. Whether it's health or financial or anything else like that. At age 18, you have to, you become an adult, and you are the only one that has the right to make decisions. Now you can authorize other people to make those decisions. So anybody over the age of 18 needs to have a plan. So and it could be just as simple as a couple power of attorneys. I talked to, there was a parent who had a 19-year-old who passed away at college, got hit by a car at a college campus, and he ended up dying at the age of 19. And the doctors would not give them any information. They could not cancel his school. They couldn't do a lot of the things that you would think a parent should be able to do, but because he was over the age of 18, they couldn't do that.
That is a tragic story and a good reminder.
So I always say, age 18, you should have, even something basic, you need to have something.
So how are special needs trusts different from a regular trust, and why are they particularly more important?
So, but before we get to special needs
Okay.
side of it, I want to make this important point that I always tell people. And I always talk about, if you've ever flew in an airplane, and the stewardess goes in and tells you, you have to do A, B, and C, buckle your seatbelt and do this and that. But if in an emergency this air comes down and you got to put this the air over your face first
Oxygen
before you help others.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people, and especially parents, to realize, we love our kids and we'll do anything and everything for our kids, but we also have to make sure that we are taken care of first before you can help others. So we need to make sure our finances are taken care of. And we've got ourselves set up so that we can then take care of others. And I think that's probably the most important thing, when I'm talking to families, is to make sure that you're taken care of first. And then once you've got yourself taken care of, then we start moving on to talking about kids.
That's a good point, because I think that, it's often not until something dramatic happens to you that you stop and consider, what am I going to do? Or what would I have done had this gone differently? Or what's next? And I think a lot of times, like you're saying, people think, especially if they're young parents, well, what do I have? Why is it important for me to do this right now? You just drove an important point home.
Yeah. And I talk about that first, because I want to make sure that it's clear that before we get into special needs, that we have our own, we've got a plan in place that we're going to execute on for our financial. Then we'll start talking about special needs trust. So all
right.
So if we look at like the special needs trust arena, we have to look at these trusts and say, and some of the decisions that we have to look at is, okay, how much are we putting into this trust, or what are the assets that are going to be available? And with those assets, we have to have a plan. So, unlike an individual that can receive money, we have to be able to protect those assets, because a lot of the rules are based upon the resources that the child has. And if the child is over-resourced, so typically about $2,000 is the resource amount. So if they have over $2,000, then they will start being disqualified for additional benefits.
For that small amount of money.
Wow. So that includes like savings accounts. That includes money for college. That includes, a lot of these things. So special needs trusts start kicking in because, we don't want to over-resource individuals.
Okay.
So when I have these conversations with special needs trust, I'm not just looking at the parents. I also have to reach out and look at the broader picture. What is the family outside of that nuclear family what resources are available outside of that? So I'm going to be talking about and having a plan, not just for the parents, but I also have to think about grandparents, aunts, uncles, anybody that could give the child money. And if they could give money to the child, then we start having to increase that plan to make sure that the plan is set up.
So the child's protected.
Yes.
From not continuing to get help and not being disqualified.
Yeah.
That is a really amazing point. I think a lot of people would never even consider. So that's a big impact on the eligibility for government programs is
Yes.
that $2,000. So the special needs trust helps to protect that.
That's correct.
That's
So,
something I think a lot of people don't know, right?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, and there's different types of trusts. There's first party trusts and second party, or first party trusts and third party trusts.
Mhm.
So typically third party trusts are where the parents or grandparents have set up this trust.
Okay.
First party trusts, and we'll talk about this here in a minute about OPRA trusts and ABLE accounts.
Right.
But first party trusts are resources that are in the child's name.
Okay.
And sometimes, we'll need that as well.
Mhm.
So yeah.
Okay. And then, so then along those lines, now you talked about choosing a guardianship and how important it is to do that, especially, after the age of 18, but it sounds like before the age of 18, that's also very important.
Yeah.
And that there are specific things you have to do to make sure that happens,
Yeah.
choosing a guardian, et cetera.
Yeah. And one of the things that I've found is that there is always this big fight between the age of 0 and the child turning age 18 on who is going to be the guardian of the children.
Mm.
And
a concern, right? A big
Right.
concern. Yeah.
Right. And family dynamics change over time. Sometimes it's great, you're having great relationships. Sometimes it's not so great, and you're going to have these ebbs and flows. And because there's these ebbs and flows, people don't want don't want to make a decision, and that ends up pushing off talking about an estate plan because I don't want to make the decision on the guardian. I don't want to offend anybody by who I pick as my guardian.
Mhm.
The problem is not picking that, not doing it, and there's an accident or there's an issue. We end up having to have a legal battle over who is the guardian.
Wow.
And that's before the child turns age 18. That doesn't even include special needs individuals over the age of 18,
Mhm.
and whether or not they have they need a guardianship past age 18. So
Wow.
just looking at pre-age 18, that's probably the biggest thing. I'd rather somebody make a decision and have 3 options, and
Right.
versus not making a plan to delay that decision.
So they can have 3 options. They don't have to just
Yeah.
choose one. I
Right,
think
they
that's
can have,
important.
this is the order that I want. I want my mom and dad. I want my wife's mom and dad.
Mhm.
I want and I want an aunt.
Right.
So you can have different. You can have it kind of as you're suggested. And
Yeah.
if they don't want to, they can say, nope, I don't want to. And it
Yes.
automatically goes to the next person. So
Yeah, that is a great idea. I mean, but tell me, what happens if that person or those persons move to another country and they're overseas? They're not here in the US. How does that impact that?
they have a time limit to make that decision. So I'm sure that, your death or somebody's death will alert them
Right.
to make those decisions. But they either accept the children or they don't.
And so it doesn't matter where they live in terms of they can be the guardian and they can be in charge of the trust.
That's correct.
Once they accept it.
If that's their if that's the parent's will or their suggestion, absolutely.
They can live on Mars. I mean, it doesn't matter. It's just as long as they respond.
As long as they respond.
Yeah, that's cool.
And they, the court is going to look at what's in the best interest of the parents. In something like an international travel situation, writing a letter pre-death
Mhm.
explaining why
You chose
they
to-
want to have a connection to Turkey or connection to Pakistan or to China, maybe in the child's best interest, and you kind of explain it out. That would be useful.
That's awesome. Good to know. Thank you for that. So you mentioned Able and Obra, all these
Yeah.
letters. Can
Uh-huh.
you tell us what these mean and
Sure.
how somebody might get involved in this?
Sure. So Able accounts is probably about 3 or 4 years old.
Okay.
Able account is kind of like a IRA or financial an account for special needs children,
Okay.
and it could, it doesn't have to be children; it could be an adult. But so when I talked about the resource limits of $2,000,
Mm-hmm.
so if you become over-resourced in any one month, you've got a couple choices. You could take that money and move it into an ABLE account, and that will not penalize you for that $2,000.
Okay.
Same thing with an OBRA account. It's also an OBRA account is also called a first-party trust. So it's an account in which the person has the money in their name.
Okay.
So it is available funds. So the importance of both of the ABLE account and the first party trust account is those assets can be seized by Medicaid after death.
Okay.
So we don't want to physically put money in to fund them. We want to put those resources somewhere else, and
Okay. So that they can't be seized.
so they can't be seized.
Okay.
But these accounts can be used for everything that the government benefits don't provide. So
Okay.
if the child is able to live on their own, and their resources don't avail them to pay for cable or for Netflix or or the game that they like to play, or
Yeah. An extra benefit that we
the
have.
extras.
Yeah.
Okay, so you can use that ABLE account or that first party trust to
okay.
pay for those extras.
So they're sort of liquid funds that you have readily
Yeah.
available, but you
Yeah.
don't want you don't want there to be, a lot of money in there, because then if something happens to you tomorrow, then,
Yeah.
that money can be seized. Okay.
So ABLE account, you can put up to $100,000 into that.
That's a
account.
lot of extras. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
But depending upon the circumstances, it may be needed.
Okay. For
So-
medical or some kind of, okay. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. That's amazing. I've never would have thought that. I think that's great information for parents to know.
Yeah.
Moving
Well,
along.
And
Go ahead.
in those decision making, in those
Okay.
parts,
Yeah, I was going to ask, how do you decide which is which?
there's different choices and different reasons why you want one versus another.
Okay.
ABLE account reduce the as many needs for a first party trust as used to be. You needed a third party trust, a first party trust, and you need all these other things. Okay. And you need all these different trusts to protect the child. Well, the ABLE account kind of reduced that a little bit,
Okay.
so that you don't need as many of the things as you used to. But there's still uses, and there are certain circumstances. I was talking to a couple the other day. They were teachers, and because they are teachers, they received a government pension.
Right.
And because they have a government pension, and they had a disabled adult child, their disabled adult child can receive the pension
Okay.
after death.
Mhm.
So we want that money to go into a first party trust, not into the ABLE account, because those funds
You see.
it could exceed $100,000.
Yeah, and they can be seized, you said, so,
Well, they're going to be, no matter what, they'll be seized.
yeah, yeah.
But the question is, can they have that Social Security benefit and some of the
And
other
this.
benefits?
Okay.
So utilizing as many of those benefits as possible.
It just sounds like a lot, though, which is why I think somebody like you needs to be involved, right? I mean, that's
Right.
the whole point. It's,
Right.
Being able to find somebody, so, I have to ask right now, a lot of folks out there are thinking, it's super expensive, though, to get a third party like yourself involved. That's probably in their brain. Can you help me understand those costs? And
Sure. Those the the thing to think about, and this is the hardest part of the conversation, is what resources can I get because I did this planning?
okay,
Okay.
cost benefit analysis, right?
So we're looking at how much money can I, there's perks and benefits that a lot of people don't know about. Usually when I'm meeting with clients and we've talked through a strategy session, there's something that more than paid for what they're paying me to do.
Yeah.
Okay. And then all the loopholes. I mean, there's so many different loopholes that are available for exemptions and things that we want them to do, not just for their planning, but also for the child's planning. That there's constantly changing legal arguments. So if you try to do this on your own, you're going to step into a landmine, and you don't even know that you stepped into the landmine until it comes up and grabs you.
I think that as a person, I know you probably feel the same way. It just seems so unfair. We can't make this simpler. That it
Yeah.
can be
Yeah.
easier.
My clients say, I just want something. I just want a simple will. If you go to the personal injury attorney to go to them and say, yeah, you want a simple will, they'll draw you up a 2 to 3 page document, and you're say you're fine and walk out the door. But somebody that knows the processes and all the different rules. I mean, there's so many different rules that it's not even, to think through all these different programs to make sure that all your boxes are fit.
Yeah. So you have a lot of people putting the weight of their life on your shoulders. I mean, how must that feel to you, to take on that responsibility?
I love doing it.
And clearly you do. I mean, and you have that personal investment with your personal, which again, but that is just fundamentally amazing. I want to make sure we cover wills and testaments and the tools that a family can use to know how to distribute their estate. So what is a testamentary trust? And what's a regular will? Can you cover some of that?
Sure. So I talk about wills. So let's talk about what a will is. A will is your direction of what your wishes are.
Okay.
In order to enforce your will, there may be a process there is a process if you own real estate. And I'm talking about the state of Illinois. So state of Illinois, it's if you own real estate or you have over $100,000.
Okay.
Then you have to go through a probate process in order to enforce your will. Okay. So if if you have any of those two happen, own real estate or have more than $100,000, somebody has to, for example, I use real estate as a perfect example. Who's going to sign your deed to transfer your house to the buyer?
Mm-hmm.
The only person that can sign the deed is a judge. So the judge steps in your shoes to enforce it. Okay.
And that's what a probate is.
And that's where probate is.
Yeah, right.
Probate is a long, statutorily,
Mhm.
it is a 6-month to 2-year process to
Wow.
transfer your assets from you to the next generation.
Okay.
Okay.
It can be up to 2
to your
years.
beneficiary.
That's amazing. I've heard, the 6 months or whatever, but 2 years. Wow.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, personal experience. My great uncle passed away probably about 7-8 years ago, and he had no kids, but he had 26 nieces and nephews.
Wow.
There was no one contesting the estate,
Mhm.
and through that estate, there was a house, some money, a little bit of life insurance. And we all had a portion that we kind of were to receive. The attorney made $5,000 out of that. The executor made $5,000,
Okay.
and it took 2 years. I mean, and no one contested it. No one was
It
fighting
just,
over
yeah.
who gets what or anything.
The
like
processes of maybe 26 people or, right?
Right.
Wow. That's just something that you don't stop to consider
Right.
and think about.
So trusts are the total opposite of that.
Okay.
Okay. Trusts, you retitle everything into the name of a trust, and the trust really owns it. But you as trustee, like me and my wife were trustees of our trust. And with our trust, the trust, my wife writes checks and I write checks and everybody's, paying the bills just like normal. But the person that owns it, and at the time of my death, I don't own anything. My trust owns everything.
Oh, okay.
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 And so the trustee of that trust then takes care of everything.
So now there's no probate.
Now there's no probate.
Wow.
So I now just cut out the attorney of any fees. And
Okay. And what about an executor?
the executor could charge a fee,
Mhm.
but usually if it's quick,
Yeah.
they may not choose to.
Right. Because it just goes straight through and there's no problem. Right.
Correct.
Wow. Okay. That's the big difference between testamentary trust and a regular will.
Well, that's the difference between wills and trusts.
Oh, okay. Testamentary is different. Okay.
Testamentary is a little bit different. So a testamentary trust is a trust that springs to life through your will. So you're not funding everything. You're not putting everything into the name of the trust today.
Okay.
It is a trust that springs up out of the will and says, I'm here, I collect all the assets.
I'm the beneficiary.
I'm the beneficiary.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I've heard that explained before.
Mm-hmm.
That is a great way to, announce it. Yeah. That makes sense. So this would be a beneficial thing for a lot of people.
It could be a beneficial thing. It depends upon if you fund the testamentary trust.
Okay.
So basically, if you use a testamentary trust, you can, and if you fund it and do everything that you need to do, that's great. It comes to life. It has the funds already in there. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, you have a will that has to go through probate.
Yes.
Then it goes into the testamentary trust.
Okay. Okay, so
Okay.
you want to make sure you do this the correct way, which
Right.
again is why having someone like you involved is worth it. If you have, a significant amount, or even just any, I would say life insurance, most normal life insurance benefits,
Yeah.
then it would behoove you to look into getting help from someone like you,
Yep.
because that's important. So that answers that. One last question I wanted to cover that came up. Most states, have these laws that allow parents to continue their health plan coverage for their disabled adult child, even past the point of dependent coverage limits, which sometimes are 26, I think now, right?
Right.
How can people know what the limits are in their state? Are they different by state? How do they get this information?
A lot of that is you know, the the Affordable Care Act allows it up to age 26. For disabled adults, it does give them that ability to provide more, and it just varies. It varies upon the plan.
Okay.
So you need to talk to your employer about each plan. If you're on the Affordable Care Act through the state, there's positives and negatives to it. So, but for the most part, if you have somebody that's needing assistance, you can get more resources sometimes that with Medicaid than you can with your plan. So you
got to check it out.
You got to check it out. You got to look, going back to cost benefit analysis. Sometimes it's, if it's not costing you anything and the employer's paying for it, yeah, let's stretch it out as much as possible, and use Medicaid as or Medicaid is first, and the health insurance to pay second. But for the most part, you got to look at it from a cost analysis. I don't want somebody to say, yes, I want to keep them onto my employer plan as long as possible if Medicaid will pay for a lot of the benefits that are available. So
yeah. Why would I be paying out of pocket if I can?
Right. For every dollar, and that's then why it's important for us to apply for Social Security as soon as possible for the children. Get money into that OBRA account and ABLE account so that we can, if there is anything in excess that Medicaid will not pay for, that is used. Those are using the ABLE account or the first party trust to then fund those needs that Medicaid is not paying for.
Especially when it comes to things like therapy, I mean, a lot of for ABA or for speech and OT and different kinds of therapy, that often are not covered, unfortunately, by Medicaid.
Right.
And so those would be important in that respect too. That's awesome. That's good information, Todd. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah. Anything we can use, I mean, we as parents can keep our kids at home as long as possible. They will, through Social Security, they will pay you rent. So you can take that money, then filter it back through to a third party trust, or pay for therapy, pay for this, pay for that. I mean, there's so many other benefits that are available
that you can use Social Security for. So getting Social Security, I know so many parents who have special needs kids who weren't even aware of this, that,
Right.
that they needed to get this and sign up for this right away, or what the PUNS list is, and
Right.
getting on that.
Right.
Do you have, I know your firm, you guys do a lot of things. Do you have like any resources on your website or things that people can look at there, or reach out just for questions, simple questions, or anything that you might want to find?
So generally, what we do, there is a, if you send us an email, we can send you, certain information.
Mhm.
But we do, we don't do a free consultation, and there's a whole ethics reason why we don't do those. We used to do those, and now, based upon our, some of the
Experience.
from experience,
Mhm.
we have we do start charging, because to clearly define that you are a client,
Yeah,
giving you legal information.
right.
But sometimes even on the initial consultation, you're walking out with enough resources, enough value that you've
You've
you
already paid
understand,
for it.
you've
Yeah,
already paid for it.
you've already paid for it. I think that's the message I got loud and clear here, is that, that couple $100, or, that you're spending, that sounds like so much money at the time, can just bring you thousands of dollars worth of benefits. And not to mention the heartache, potential heartache for your child being left in a situation without having that coverage and understanding what's next.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, and I'll give you one little. I mean, just because it's an experience, and having having that little savings account, people don't realize that they've built money up for birthdays.
Mm.
Titling that correctly, I mean, having that, because that's a resource, that is a child's resource. And we and then having the 529 plans, and then having all these things where everybody's contributing and trying to help the kid out. Not having a plan, um, uh, uh, it can be difficult. I mean, I had a client's account seized by Medicaid because they had birthday money in there and
Oh
didn't
my
realize,
goodness. Wow.
and they were disqualified for Medicaid because they had those resources.
Just the smallest things that, you are aware of. You
Mhm.
got the education and the experience to do that. How many years have you been practicing?
I've been practicing for 15.
Oh, goodness. Yeah. So you've got a lot of personal experience and then actual legal experience. And it's just been such a pleasure to just get a little snippet of that
Yeah.
in this brief conversation. And I hope maybe we can follow up again.
Oh,
Maybe
absolutely.
some more information from you. I know your information is going to be on the screen where people can reach out to you. And we just appreciate you and the work that you do for the community, and for being here with us today.
Well, I appreciate it. I appreciate it so much. Everything we do, we're trying to educate people, so they don't feel afraid to ask questions.
Yeah.
Everybody's so worried about all these different things, and there's important then there's important deadlines. I mean, we've worked um, with clients. I mean, if you have any kind of, and I didn't even know this until I had to use this personally, but there's only an 8-year statute of limitations if there's a medical malpractice case. So,
Yeah.
You have very short windows of times to make decisions, and people don't realize, hey, if there's a problem, or they usually think, oh, they're minor, we can push that off until over the age of 18. But
Mhm.
you've got to make that decision as soon as 5-6 years in, to see if this is there's some kind of cause of action. And it's so crazy, all the decisions you have to make as a parent.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But you know what? I think of all the things that are in our lives when we're raising a child with special needs, especially, that are out of our control.
Yeah.
Take hold of what you can control.
Exactly.
And this is an area that you can. You don't want to sound dumb when you're asking questions. Well, it's within your control to do this. So take it.
There's never a dumb question.
Mhm.
There's never a dumb question. I mean, we're here to educate.
Yeah.
We're more educators than we are truly practitioners. And I think that's, I can do an assembly line of, doing this, this, and this, but the person, if you walk out of my office and you don't understand what I just did for you, there's a problem. And I don't, from our perspective, we don't want that to happen. We want you to know exactly what, you're not going to know everything, but we have as much information as possible to make to get through.
Do something, to get through the next step, right?
To get through the next step. Yeah. Absolutely.
Well, Todd, thank you. You're a blessing and a wonderful person, and look forward to talking to you again soon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.